to get started, and Karen, just so that like the people that don't know you, right? Why don't you give a quick, like, maybe in a minute, so maybe talk about you and your journey with clinic ownership and leadership and all this other stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I own a clinic in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm a co-owner of a multidisciplinary practice. I've got 37 employees, and I started it in 2004 with myself, and that was it. I rented a room in a gym and kind of expanded throughout the years. We now have two locations, one 7,000 square foot and one 4,000 square foot. So yeah, and it's all everything from physio to strength conditioning to massage, dietitian, psychology, OT, physician. We run a lot of programs, so it's a very busy pump and clinic. I'm a sport physiotherapist by trade, but I don't practice anymore. I run the business. And then I got involved with Clinic Accelerator in 2018 when things were chaotic and I was ready to walk away and drop off the key to anybody who would take it. So things turned around, and I've really done a lot more with leadership, communication, and become involved with Clinic Accelerator. And one of my biggest whys while I'm on this planet is to actually help other clinic owners make a little bit easier path for them than it was for me. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Karen's one of our leadership coaches in the community, and it's been awesome to actually have her share her experience with everyone. Type Karen in the chat. I just want to give a shout out to Karen because she's going to do a lot of amazing experience sharing. Like, she's running like a big clinic and a team of 37, and so she's going to actually share a lot of her journey to help you guys be able to make the process easier. Especially in the last couple of years, it's been very tricky to be able to have work-life balance, delegating work, but you're also like worried about your staff like quitting on you, right? So
yeah, it's been very stressful, but also a lot of opportunity for change as well. So I think it's double-sided for sure.
Yeah. So type in the chat, everyone. What is something that you delegated recently where you ended up doing it yourself, right? So type that in the chat. What is something that you delegated recently? It could be a task, and then you just end up getting so frustrated that you're like, oh my God, it's just faster. I do it myself, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Social media.
Hey, hopefully your mic works. I'm gonna go on the fly and put you on mic. Are you there? Hopefully your mic works.
Yeah, it works.
Oh, social media. So tell us what happened.
I tried to delegate it and failed, essentially. It's tough to give up the ownership of it because then you don't know what's going out. You want to make sure that information is accurate. Then you want your clinicians to be happy with the information that's going out. So I just do it myself, and not very well, but I do it.
Yeah. And how many hours a week do you spend on it, Madison, you think?
I don't know. I just sit, watch Netflix and do social media or write or whatever. I'm always constantly doing social media type marketing whenever I should be at home, not doing anything.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna ask a question, Madison. So what do you think the reason is that it failed?
I don't know. Maybe I guess part of it is not having I get not the trust, but having I want to be able to control what's on it in terms of factual information and education being accurate. And then also I think there's also this kind of idea still from clinicians that it's my job's to be just a clinician and social media is not my job, but it's tough because they're the ones who are in the room. And the best thing is having real patient stories. And without having those, your social media is kind of just a Canva role. It's not real life, and it's not what we actually do at our clinic, and it's not what you can actually expect from treatment. So without them being willing, I guess, to buy in and have their appointments may be interrupted for 30 seconds for a photo and a quick story, it's tough to get that out there. So when that's delegated, it's like a bit of an uncomfy conversation for my staff to be like, hey, I'm just going to come into your appointment and do this, even though the patient's already consented. So I feel a little bit more comfortable being like, this is what we're doing, guys. So I think that's probably why it failed
Okay.
so far.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, you said two key words, which has come up several times, and the words were control and trust. Right. So that's interesting. And I think there's certainly lots of ways to maneuver that to actually get the outcome that you want. Just working through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And thanks for sharing there. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Type in the chat, who else has like similar, maybe like experiences with like letting go of maybe control and trust, right? Maybe type control in the chat if that's something that you struggle with, is like with like, when it comes to delegating, like giving up control. Type control in the chat if that's something that you could like relate with, because I definitely could relate with that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a big one, I think, for everybody, the giving up control, especially, you're the owner and you feel responsible. Are they going to do it right? And the other aspect too is giving up control exposes you, makes you vulnerable for them to see. Maybe you don't know exactly what you're doing, and then somebody else is going to see you don't know what you're doing. So it's easier to control it and hang on to it, because then at least you could protect it versus letting it go to somebody else. So that's a big one.
Yeah. And which kind of is like kind of the next question is that, is it possible to delegate and give up control? Like type in the chat, like yes or no. Is it possible to delegate and give up control?
Or change the mindset around control, because you could still have it. It's just how you define it too, right?
Yeah.
Because you can still control the narrative, the vision. You can control the material. This is what I like in the content, but you're not actually the one doing all of the steps to get it done.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is a very philosophical question, right? Like to me, is like, I think you have to give up control, right? You have to give up control and let your teams fail, and then go into that journey. If you have the wrong hire, like that's another problem. That's much more deep rooted than like, it's like, you just have the wrong person on the bus, right? But you have to give them a chance to fail. In terms of like, me, like how I deal with like my control or perfectionist like a nature, is that like I could control it by having like weekly meetings with a weekly scoreboard, so I know I could catch like the yellow flags before they become red, right? And use them as learning experiences, right? Or like I could control, like have the control with like managing how my teams fail, right? So that it's only a $5 mistake and not a $100,000 mistake, right? But also like my role, if I want to delegate effectively, is I have to give up control and have to let my teams fail, just like how I failed so many times over the years, and you learn by failing, right?
Oh yeah, that's the only way you learn.
Yeah,
by failing, and then you do better, or you change something.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and so yeah, we're gonna the second thing I want to ask is like, and we kind of talked a little about this like earlier, Karen, is that like why is it that like clinicians and owners are such perfectionists, right? So type in the chat, like if you're a physiotherapist, if you're a chiropractor, if you're a naturopath, like why is it that like, why do you think you have these control tendencies, or like you're such a perfectionist, which stops you from delegating, right? So type that in the chat, and then Karen, as people type in the chat, like, what's kind of your thoughts around this?
Well, I think it's multifactorial. I think it's, largely our blueprint and how we're made a little bit. We kind of come with that depending on, how you're raised or the way you're wired. And I think the other too, and this point was brought up this morning, that as in our field, we're always being kind of, it's got to be perfect, the perfect assessment, the perfect amount of mobilization or perfect technique. It's always striving to get better to do that technique 100% as a clinician. So it's very tactically geared towards perfectionism. So I think that's part of it. And I think we tend to be, as a profession, a little bit type A generally in the people that choose the profession, and particularly clinic owners, right? We're perfectionists, we're entrepreneurs, we're go-getters. So I think it's multifactorial. It's a matter of identifying what is you. Why are you such a perfectionist? And then do you need to choose? Do you want it to be perfect, or do you want it to get done? Because if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you'll be waiting a long time.
Yeah. And is 80% good enough, right?
Right. If you want to move the needle on something in your business, you need to get it done at a level that's okay. It may not be perfect, but the only one, nobody knows how you think or what perfect should be. And so you're always going to be disappointed if that's the expectation. But the person that's doing the delegating is going to continue to live their life, and you're going to be disappointed because it wasn't perfect.
Yeah,
and it didn't get done either.
If this resonates with you, type in the chat a score out of 100. If this resonates with you, just what we talked about, a score of 100, 100% if this resonates with you, 0 if it doesn't, right? A score of 100, please, right? This is a very quiet chat, eh, Karen? Like, what's going on here? Maybe we should just end this call. Right? Type in the chat. Let us know you're live. You're listening to us. Like, there's only a few people typing in. Like, you're not feeding us energy to like talk more. Right? So, all right, there you go. I don't want to bribe you with I don't want to bribe you with pizza. I just want you to like be involved. Like be part of this community. There you go.
There we go.
Awesome. 100%. Okay. Okay, that's cool.
Afternoon lull, but yeah, I think it's a very self-reflective topic too. So we get that where you're like, wait a minute, why don't I? And so, but type that in the chat, because the more you share with the people in there, the more we're going to be able to explore and help other people with the subject, because delegation is probably one of the most important things that you can do in your business for many reasons.
Yeah, and we're gonna do an exercise together right now. It's a little workshop we're gonna do. We plan it just for you guys, and so hopefully you're at a computer, okay? And if you're not at a computer, let's see. If you're not a computer, you can do it on your phone as well. Okay. So I want you to take your time to actually fill this out. It takes about 10 minutes, and we're going to do it like live right now on the spot. And we'll also review the results together as a community, and just before you start, so don't start yet. So just before you start, one of the questions, when you fill out this exercise, is actually to be able to identify what your leadership style is, right? And the perspective is not what you want it to be and not what you think it is, but it's what your staff thinks your leadership style is, right? Right? And so Karen, before they get started with filling out that workshop, can you talk about the 6 leadership styles?
Yeah, I think I just want to draw your attention that you can kind of navigate and flow through a variety, but it comes down, what is your most go-to style of coaching? And I think it starts on one end of the spectrum where it's commanding, where you just basically demand compliance. Do what I tell you because I said so. Don't ask me questions, just get it done, right? That's your commanding. And then on the far end is coaching, which is more of developing people's future. Why don't you try this? Have you thought about that? Showing a lot more empathy and self-awareness. And then in between, you've got the visionary, which I think is really important to help people move them towards a vision. Come with me along the vision. I want your input. Very positive, strong vibe. And then affiliative is creating more harmony. It's building emotional bonds, which you're putting your people first, your team first, which is a very common style for sure. And then the democratic, you're trying to force consensus through participation. So getting more people to participate, asking them what they think, to get that buy-in, building team buy-in. And then pace setting is more of the setting really high standards for performance. Do as I do now. This is what we expect. We have very high standards. You need to meet them, boom, boom, boom. So a little bit more demanding. So it is a spectrum, and in each one, sometimes you do have to apply in different scenarios or situations, but answer the question with more of what you do most, or as Rick said, what would your staff say you were as far as leading?
Yes. So we're gonna start this. I'm gonna actually play some Jeopardy music while you guys figure this out, right? And so once again, everyone, I want you to fill out this form. And this form this exercise will actually help you get in the process of delegating, And so there's about like 5-6 different questions. There's about 7-8 different questions on here. And one of them is like, why'd you become a clinic owner? There's 4 options for you to choose from. And then once you guys fill this out, we're gonna like our session, and we're gonna break this down and give you things that you could work on, and you're gonna see hopefully you can have some epiphany moments, So who understands these exercises? Type in workshop in the chat. Type in workshop. We're doing this like workshop where you're filling it out, so you're filling it out, and we're gonna do this workshop kind of like together, So I think there's a question, So maybe who is that? Maybe we could put them on mic. Someone has their hand up. Let's see. One of the attendees. Who has their hand up? There you go. Ooh. Okay, I think they turned it off. It was you, Ian? All right. Okay, good. Everyone fill out this form. This is good. Like, I think, and we're gonna share the results afterwards. And once again, it's confidential, so you won't see any names, and we're just like doing the survey, and we're gonna just like share you and it's very insightful, So, Karen, like, let's talk about you. Like, when as people fill this form out, like, what was your journey like? Like, when you first started off, like, what was your leadership style, and what is it now, and what was that journey like, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about this actually later today. If they had a category called "Fly by the Seat of Your Pants" coaching, that's how I started, because I didn't know what I was doing with staff. So I kind of flew by the seat of my pants. I probably was a little bit in the visionary, but also pace setting, because I was wanting to grow, setting a high standard, setting a vision, and we grew quickly. So a little bit was on achievement at the beginning. And I probably lost a couple staff just by pushing that standard a little too high and trying to be perfect. So over the years, I've really transitioned to more of a coaching style, weaving in and out, certainly with a visionary, and some of the affiliative as well. And sometimes it has hurt me in the past, like putting people first too much without, recognizing sometimes you have to make a hard decision and say no. So I've kind of gone through all of them, but now, I sit more in the coaching style, which is with my staff, and then using that with other community clinic owners as well. So.
Yeah, that's interesting to say that, and I think my journey was very similar as well, Karen. When I starting off in my clinic owner journey, I was in that commanding mode, right? You're on payroll. Just what do you mean you can't do it? Right?
Yeah.
And then like it was very authoritative, and it. And as a result, I ended up losing a lot of people because like the culture was toxic because of that, right? And then I switched into this other mode where it's affiliative and democratic, where like I was so worried about people leaving me, like my front desk leaving me, like my physiotherapist leaving me, the chiropractor leaving me, especially in this shortage right now. I just want to make everyone happy, I want to make the senior therapist happy. I want to make the junior therapist happy. I want to make everyone happy so they don't leave me, right? And then what I realized was that when I was like in this mode too, like people still left me.
Yeah.
When I was trying to please everyone.
That's right.
Because I've just ended up being a people pleaser, right? And then I transitioned. Now when I look at my journey now, like I've transitioned into being a coach / visionary,
Yeah.
where like I'm trying to develop people. I'm trying to like get people to rally towards like my vision of the business, during like the difficult times, because you need hope, especially in the last couple of years, and also during the good times, so you celebrate the wins, And so, that's kind of been like my journey,
Yeah. And I think now the visionary, the more I think about it, not only are you carrying your owner visionary, but all of your staff have their own vision. And so how do you elevate them? Because they have a vision as well. So how do you support them to achieve, what they want to achieve?
Yeah. That's kind of cool, So people are still filling it out. Who needs more time? Type time in the chat if you need more time to fill out the exercise. Type time in the chat. All right, Sarah needs 2 more minutes. Okay, cool. Karen, maybe you could talk about this, because we talked about this too, right? There's a different leadership style depending on the situation, right? Right? And so I love this slide here that talks about like, if you look at this like red section, like there's a time and place to be certain roles, right? Do you want to maybe talk about that?
Yeah, I think this is really important, because I don't think you're very effective if you only use one style. So if we look at the commanding one, which many people might think is negative, but if we look at the crisis that happened with COVID in 2020, we really did have to go into that. We had to make quick decisions, and there was a sense of urgency. And so this is what we had to do. It's not what we want to do, but this is what we have to do. And so you did go into that mode. And then sometimes now I feel as through this has gone, we've gone into that coaching where you're helping to coach staff if they're having problems, or you want to use a bit more empathy and compassion style as things, have rolled out since 2020. So I think the visionary one too, a lot of clinic owners, us included, used COVID and this last couple of years to make some changes requiring a new vision. Virtual rehab is one of them. We had to create a new vision of how we were going to deliver our services. So it really did require that visionary type of leadership.
That's a good point, Karen, because like right now, like this is like the 3rd wave or 5th wave, whatever you want to call it, is that like part of the vision is giving people hope, right?
Yes.
Hope of like, better things to come, that we're going to get through this, and I think we've all as leadership roles have been in that role, right? And that's so important, right? So.
Yeah, I think that and sometimes that's difficult for people, especially if you don't like change. Staff that doesn't like change doesn't like to look at new visions, right? So you got to really try and lead them down the path and make, help them see that as a visionary. And that's your job as the leader of the business, because not everybody is going to have the same vision as you.
Yeah. And this is a great example too right now. Like a lot of us right now, a lot of clinics right now are in a recruitment challenge. Recruitment challenge, yes. Where like, like you've lost some of your senior therapists, like there's not a lot of like new grads you could hire, your front desk is leaving you because like they're going to another like, like there's like so much job opportunities, right? And so we end up like, like being in this like democratic and affiliate type of leadership role where like we don't want we're so scared to like get our staff to do something because we were worried about them leaving us, right? Like if that makes sense, type quit in the chat if that makes sense. Like I feel like a lot of us are like on this like walking on eggshells with our staff, where we're worried that like, oh my gosh, like if I push them too much, they're gonna leave me, and then oh my god, like so like Karen.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think I lean a lot on my leadership team for support in this. Like, what do you think? We have a hard decision to do. I need your objective opinion. What do you think? So I use a lot with my managers and directors is to get their input, because it can actually allow me to see my blind spots and have other things to consider. So I use that democratic one a lot with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, like and we're a big fan of this within Clinic Accelerator, is that like the roles that we as owners and leaders have to switch to is more of a coach, you know, where like, you know, meeting with like your leadership team, whether it's your clinic director, your office manager, or your clinicians, you know, meeting them like weekly to develop them and mentor them, you know, and challenge them, like, and push and pulling them so that like they end up being the best version of themselves, you know. And it's very tricky because you might come off as micromanaging them as well, you know, and there's like a bit of a delicate role, but this is what people are seeking for. Like, if you want to grow, you need a coach to be able to push you and pull you. And so it's a very fine balance, right?
It is. And I mean, if you're wanting to delegate and you're struggling with delegation, this is critical, because you're really, you know, coaching somebody to take on something so that you don't have to do it. So you have to coach that person as you would coach a team. We don't just meet with the team once a year and hope there's success, right? If you look at the sports team, you have practices. So you practice the same drills, you meet, how's it going? And then you see performance over time. And that's what a coach does.
Yeah. Hey guys and girls, type in the chat, which of these leadership style do you think is the best for clinic culture? You know, type that in the chat. What do you think is the best leadership style that will help improve the culture of your business, you know? And so type that in the chat. I want to see what people think, you know, and then obviously we're going to, so Scott is like democratic, right? You know, pace setting and coaching is Monica. Yeah. What else, everyone?
Yeah, keep typing, because this is interesting.
Typing. If you want me to give you the answer, like, everyone has to type, because there's only a few people stepping up right now, you know, right? Ian, hint, hint. Ian, hint, hint.
There we go. Okay, affiliated. We see affiliated. We see coaching. Some pace setting. Yeah.
This is interesting, eh? Like, Karen, because like I think most physiotherapists, chiropractors, most like healthcare professions, like this is their natural leading style. I don't want to like rock the boat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Mary Joan. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, you guys ready for the roll drum? You guys ready for the roll drum? You know what? I always want to do this, so you gotta bear with me.
Can you hear it?
I'm going to do this.
Oh, you're going to do one?
Okay. All right. I had to do that. Okay. All right. Ta-da. Here you go. All right.
Wow.
Type in the chat. Does this like, what do you see here? Yeah. What's your biggest takeaway from seeing this? And Karen, what's your thoughts about this?
Well, it's interesting because we did this morning on the community live call, and it was surprising. This surprised a lot of people that visionary had the biggest impact on culture. I think a lot of people did choose affiliative and coaching as their top ones, didn't they? And a lot of, you know, in the chat here, that was, and that's, I would have chosen that too, but the research shows that it's actually visionary. And
visionary and coaching style, right? But that's not what we mostly do, right?
No. So if you want to, I mean, this is telling you, if you want to improve your company culture, try to adopt more of a visionary style of leadership. And if you don't have that, or you're not the visionary person in your company, who is? That can bring that to the team. So
type in the chat, what's your takeaway from this? You know, and I'm gonna, we had like, what's your thoughts? Are you surprised by this, or it kind of makes sense?
It makes sense to me. I think like having vision and like having a future in mind and having big goals and like sharing those with your team, it's exciting for everybody and they want to come along with you. So it doesn't surprise me that like company culture improves with that, because they can see kind of the bright future. And I think, you know, the commanding and pace setting of just demanding with not a whole lot of support obviously is fairly like toxic. And I think a lot of people before they get into ownership probably have been in spaces where that's kind of how things are run, and hopefully have learned from that and, you know, don't run things that way. And I know for me, that's kind of, you know, where I started was in a clinic that very much it was these are the expectations figured out. And so I think being in that environment and knowing how terrible it made me feel, I try to not make my staff feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, Madison. Hope, right? That's the thing that comes, people want to have hope.
Yeah. And they
And
want to
Madison,
see this part of that, I think.
Yes.
Does it surprise you that like just kind of, like being democratic or affiliative, like and being in the middle doesn't really do very much? Like
I think it doesn't surprise me. I guess I think it goes hand in hand with like nothing big and exciting and no growth really comes from a comfort zone. And so I think knowing that like this probably works and this probably works in your day to day and it keeps things afloat and it keeps your bills paid, but like it doesn't really do much to make people excited about wanting to be at work, or it doesn't do much for your company to grow. So I think they're very much comfort zone, and it works, but it's not necessarily effective long term or to build and grow.
Wow, that was gold. Was that?
That was awesome. And the other aspect though is you need to have that for culture, but you also need to get stuff done. So you need a balance of operations and visionary, so you can actually make money and see more patients and have growth in the operation sense, but carrying that vision all throughout.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
That's
okay
awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing, that.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, that was good. All right, let's go dissect some of these numbers now.
Rick, 1 second. I just want to, because it's a really neat comment, and I just want to address it because it's not the top down. I mean, the owner, you may set the vision, but the more you can get input from your staff and your team, the more they're going to buy into that vision.
Yes, 100%.
Right? So it's important that you get the team on board, because you're going to have better buy-in if they agree with your vision. If they don't agree with your vision, they're not going to stay.
Yeah.
So you're 100% right.
100%, and so all right, so here are some of the responses. It didn't look like everyone filled it out, but like this is good enough, good enough, right? So why did you become a clinic owner? And so what did people put? Like, what does anything surprise you when you look at this, Karen?
Well, it's interesting because the three are fairly close. I would say they're both the same. The Run a Better Clinic, More Time, and Change the World are both the same, which we saw that this morning, except in the reverse with the Run a Better Clinic. Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't, based on what we saw this morning, and I think those are probably the top three answers overall. I mean, for myself, I wanted to run a clinic differently in the way I wanted to run it, and I wanted to have more time and flexibility so I could have a family and not have to miss anything. So,
which is kind of like back to having more time.
Yeah.
Controlling your time so you could do the things that you want to do. If you want to check in, you can. If you don't want to work as a physical therapist, you don't have to. If you want to, you can, right? If you want to do social media like Madison, like all day, you can. It's your choice, right? So
I think the Change the World is definitely higher in this group.
Yeah, changing the world is interesting, because changing the world, like, to me, is like changing my world, right? Like even like from a micro level, right? I want to have impact within my life. I want to be able to like run my clinic a little differently. So changing the world and running a clinic, to me, like, is kind of very similar. And if you add that up, like, this makes up like a good 50%. 50% of the people who got into clinic ownership is like, so I want to be able to have change and control of my business, and I don't like how the clinic was set up previously, and so I'm just going to do my own thing, right? Right? Yeah. And then they end up like, this is the thing. Most people I see in our community end up like in the same position as the owner that they quit from originally, right? So it's kind of like you sow what you reap a little bit, right? You left because of that reason, and the people leaving you is very similar as well, right?
Yeah. And then you realize you have to make a change.
Yeah. If there's truth to that, type truth in the chat, everyone. And this is where, like, I think for us to like, I think this is really important for us to like to have self-reflection, is like, oh my God, why did I leave that clinic owner that I work with, right? And why are the people leaving me, so it's very interesting, right? Look at this one.
Yeah.
How would your staff describe your leadership style? When you look at this, like, what do you see? And people in the chat, what is your takeaway from like what the input is here on the different leadership styles, right? Type it in the chat, and then Karen, like, what do you see from this survey?
Yeah, I'm surprised the Democratic is really high, like a difference, right? The others are fairly high, but that's definitely the dominating one, which isn't really surprising. I think, and it'd be interested to really ask your staff for a real truth answer, because they'll tell you, and see if it matches what you think.
Yeah. So over 50%, like, we're just trying to please our staff. That's what it's telling me, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of the situation we're in with the recruitment. We're worried about upsetting that clinician. We can't get them to do treatment plans or like ask for that Google review. We can't, like, we're just working on eggshells, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same point too, if we fly back into like culture, how does that help with culture, them staying around? It's almost like it, does anyone have an epiphany here? Type epiphany in the chat, everyone. Type if you have this epiphany, like, we're trying to we want these people to stay, but we're also scared of them leaving, so we don't coach them and we don't inspire them. And if it's better if we do nothing, and just make everyone happy, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that we don't attach the value to visionary like we do with democratic and pleasing and trying to get people to do something where you're actually doing, versus visionary. You don't feel like you're doing anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Is Sarah the only one that got an epiphany? Like, is there anyone else, or maybe people are shy? People like don't want to be vulnerable and share. I think it's okay. I think it's important to actually, acknowledge us. Oh my God, yeah. Like maybe it's me, right? Maybe there's something I could do to actually improve how I could trust my staff more, or how I could be how I could be able to tweak my my leadership style, so.
Yeah, and I think Sarah's right. We just want everyone to like us, but that's not everyone's going to like you. They might not like you, but you want them to like their job and the place that they go to work and the people they work with. They may not like you, but they may respect you. And then they're more likely to stay. Yeah,
this is my favorite section.
Yeah.
How would you, you describe why you don't delegate more to your teams, right? So what are people writing here, right? Giving up control, right? Madison talked about that. I don't trust them, okay?
Yeah.
So Karen, someone that says, I don't trust my teammate, like, what would your response be for that?
I would ask you to ask yourself, is there proof to not trust them? If there's a pattern and a history where they're not trustworthy and you can trust them, then they're maybe not the right person to be delegating. But if you can't say, 100% that you have proof to not trust them, then that's not a reality. That's you assuming you can't trust people when they haven't proven that they can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Even given them a chance to prove they're not trustworthy. So you at least have to give them a chance, right?
Yeah. And really, like, if you maybe it's like, maybe you don't trust them because you didn't teach them the right way,
Yeah.
Maybe you don't trust them because you haven't given them a chance. Or maybe, the other thing is, like, maybe if you're surrounded with a bunch of people that you don't trust, I'm going to challenge you on whether they shouldn't be on your team, right? They even have a seat in the bus, right? So if that makes sense, type in bus in the chat, everyone, like bus in the chat, like that's something you should consider, because like if I want to be in a high performance team and I want a good clinic culture, I want to be able to trust everyone, right? At least the majority of the people. If I don't trust them, oh my God, this is like, I got something much bigger. I got a much bigger problem than my leadership style, right?
Yeah.
So,
but I think a lot of us use that, and I did it too. You're assuming that you can't trust them. So you're also expecting people to do in a situation what you would do, and then you're disappointed. They're they're going to go on living your life, but you're the one that's disappointed because they didn't act like you, but they're not you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe your expectations are too high, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe they're scared of failing in front of you because like your expectations are so high because like you're just like this, like, you know, like you're like the role model, you know, right? And they're scared of disappointing you, right? You know, so when I get people to like, when I delegate something like big to maybe some of my team members, I tell them it's okay for you to like fail. Like I let it, like, I don't expect you to get it right within the next couple of weeks or a couple of months. Like, we're gonna go through this. I just want to give you permission to fail, okay? Because like I learned from failing, you're going through failing, and I'm just gonna like coach you through this, and I want you to go through what I went through. So I give you permission to fail, you know, you know. So who likes that? Type permission in the chat, you know. I think you gotta alleviate that, give them permission that like it's okay that it's not going to be perfect, you know. It's like, you know, next week it might be like, next week it could be 20% of like my expectations, you know, maybe a month from now it'll be 50%, and maybe like 2 months from now it'll be 80%, but it's not going to be 80% next week because it's not realistic. You know, so look at this one. I love this one too. I need to learn it myself first before I could teach someone. Karen, how long would it take you to learn how to do Instagram than hiring a 21-year-old who already does it?
Oh, well, I've done that already, and it takes me probably 10 times as long. And that's why I delegated that, because I'm like, this is somebody else I know can do this better and faster and quicker to free up my time.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
You don't need to learn the entire task, everyone.
Nope.
You want to hire people who actually can do this job better than you, you know?
And sometimes all you need to know is, I need this. I need this in my business. I don't know how to do it, but I know I need it, and I don't want to do it. So who can do it? You don't need to learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't need to go become an accountant to do the books. There's bookkeepers.
Yeah. And if you're like, I did this before and it didn't work, then like the problem is you didn't find the right person. The energy, the 10 hours you spent on doing social media should be spent on finding the right person who could do it better for you. And then if you're like, oh, well, I don't want to pay whatever, $25 an hour for someone to do it, where I could train them, where maybe like Rick could train them, then I'm going to ask you like, well, you might as well be a physio and make $200 an hour. So you could pay someone $25 an hour to do the stuff that it's going to take forever to learn. Okay. If that makes sense, type $200 per hour. You can make more money being a therapist than trying to do a $20 hour task. Like, this is very, like, you got to get over this. Like, you're not going to like learn to do this task 100% before you teach someone. Okay. Just be a physio, just be a chiro, be a massage therapist, way better, you know, right? You know, keep on going. Lack of trust. They aren't trained to do it. Where do I do it incorrectly? They have too many jobs. You know, this is like job description, like, you know, like in your org structure, like, why are you dumping so much on them, right? What else?
Well, no, that
feeling guilty that I should be bigger than everyone else. What do you think about this one, Karen?
That is a big one. Like, if people, and I had this when I started to work my way out of a job, I felt guilty because I thought, well, the staff are going to see me and they're thinking I'm not doing anything. And you feel like you should be showing them that you're so busy, but that is, you know, not the correct way. You want to bring those people up to do the work, to empower them.
Yeah. I get frustrated because it takes a lot of time to explain everything, you know, right?
Yeah.
What's that quote you had, Karen? Like, remember, like, you said this in our community, like, you got to do the stuff this week so that you don't have to do it next week.
Yes. It's your return on time investment. What are you going to invest today? And it may be front end loaded, and delegation is. It takes a lot of time at the beginning. What is that going to give you down the road? Delegation is all about freeing up time for the future for you to do things. It's not about immediate. If you have the mindset this is immediate, then all you're doing is dumping stuff on other people that is not sustainable and usually doesn't go well.
Yeah. Same thing. Easier to do yourself than fail, you know, right? It's so consistent. Control, you know,
Yeah.
not familiar. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Here's the other question, everyone. The second question is like, how would your staff describe why you don't delegate? Okay, so take a look at this, everyone. Type in the chat, what do you see here that like you're like, oh my god, like that doesn't make sense. Like, look at this. Control. I don't like, this is the staff saying about the owner. I don't trust them. They're too demanding. They're a micromanager. They think I'm a perfectionist, you know. They're too busy. They want to control the project, you know. It's faster if they do it. It's faster if he or she does it herself, you know.
Yeah.
Karen, what do you see in here?
It's just, I mean, it's just the same all around. It has to do with control and not willing to let go and trust. And I talk about this in my challenge, that delegation is hugely emotional. And that's why people find difficulty doing it, because it involves fear of failure, fear of letting go, fear of giving up, creates anxiety for you. But then the person that you're delegating is also afraid of letting you down. They're afraid of letting you down. So it's huge. So you've got to identify those emotional components and the reason why you're delegating. Don't just.
Did anyone have an epiphany right now? Like, type epiphany in the chat if like you had an epiphany, right? You know, type epiphany in the chat, like, you
or
know,
just if you don't know how to spell it, because I'm like, I don't
know. Type E in the chat if like, you know, like, you know, because of your democratic affiliate or your type of leadership style, because you're trying to like make everyone happy, you know. The clinic culture is kind of like, you know, kind of like meh, right? You know, right? And then as a result is that like you don't trust, and you have issues with trust and delegation. Think you could do a better job than, so you do it yourself, and then like you're like that's why you don't give it to them. But the staff know this already. Yeah. Right. So the staff is like, oh my god, like these people don't trust me. They don't like, you know, they don't trust me. Like they're micromanager. Like, you know, I don't have any job satisfaction working here. I'm not being challenged. Yeah. Right. I gotta walk on eggshells talking to my owner because I think they're gonna like, you know, they don't like this, like that. So what ends up happening? They end up leaving, which is the thing that you're most worried about to start off with. Yeah. Type E if this makes sense. Type E if this makes sense. Okay. Like I think this is really, really important. And like we can't move on until at least a few people type the word E. You know, I think this is really like, this is like so important. The thing that we worry about the most, like, and we shape our leadership style this way, it ends up happening anyways. Yeah. Yeah. Full circle.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, if you take a really small task and just start, I'm going to delegate, I don't know, ordering donuts for the staff. I'm going to delegate that task. We do it every week. I'm usually the one that does it. What's the worst thing that happens if that doesn't get done the way you did it? Are you going to go bankrupt? Probably not. Is your entire staff going to quit? Probably not. Maybe you get the wrong donuts. Who cares? Right? It's not as bad as you think. Yeah. But you're not doing it. Somebody else is doing that task, which frees up probably 15 minutes for you, half an hour. Yeah. Somebody can pick them up, you know. It's a very low risk task.
Yeah. You know, and yeah, everyone type in the chat, like, what is your biggest takeaway from our session today? We're just going to wrap up in the next 7 minutes. What is your biggest takeaway from this exercise that we just like did, you know, right? And I'm going as people type in the chat, you know, like, what was kind of your biggest takeaway from our session so far?
Just that, like, I guess you can give up control. It's just a matter of, you know, making that conscious decision to do it and realizing that you can, like, you have to coach and you have to train people up front and, you know, have to be willing to invest that upfront time. But it is doable, even if you are like me and are like type A personality and people pleaser to the max. It's doable. I think it'll just take some curbing of habits.
Yeah, we gotta let go, right?
Yeah.
You know, and like, remember when you left, right? Yes. Your clinic owner, You
Yeah.
part of left because you felt like you weren't being challenged. You didn't like how things are being done. You know, you might have felt like they didn't trust your opinions. You know, like it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like you're living that now, and you're and having the same like behavior. You know,
Yeah.
right? That's why I said, like, you know, like this is full circle epiphany for me. Like when I was like, oh my God, like totally, right? So thanks for sharing and thanks for being vulnerable. Like you are amazing for doing.
Thanks, Matt.
No worries.
That was good.
Okay. Okay, that is awesome, everyone. You know, and so, you know, I just want to ask, like, is it okay if I spend like maybe the next like couple minutes? I want to talk about Karen's 30-day challenge on how she could help you delegate tactically week by week. You know, type Karen in the chat if you want maybe Karen to maybe talk about how like she could help you over the next like 4 weeks. You know, the challenge starts in February, where she can actually help you week by week on how to do that first step of letting go of control and delegating with your team. Type Karen in the chat, okay? Cool. And once again, if you stay until the end, right, we're gonna give out the pizza party, you know, and so Karen, like, did you want to say something or?
Yeah, no, as people are tagging, I'm just going to briefly, if I can just talk a little bit about the challenge. And this is a little bit of it too, where the delegation, it starts with you. So we're going to really do a deep dive actually, and have you self-evaluate yourself. And then really talk about letting go and how do you get comfortable with that. So first, you know, looking at understanding that we as owners, we're always going to put more into the business than others. But how are we going to move the business forward and grow? And you can't do it by yourself. So you have to learn to delegate, have to. And there's a right way of doing it. Recognizing that it's hugely emotional is one part of it. Recognizing your own barriers and self-limiting beliefs. And then how do we build that out? How do we build you a process that you can follow and have a successful delegation process? And we'll do that in real time. We'll actually build out a task. We'll decide who, when, what, where, why. And we'll do a delegation task, something small, but we'll do it in real time. You know, and I think about why you want to delegate. For me, it leverages results. It gives me more time and freedom to do other things. It gives me freedom to go beyond my clinic and help other community owners. So, and we've, you know, I've put a process together that you can follow with steps and identify how to do it, where it can fall apart, how to celebrate it, so that you can have a successful, you know, delegating system, and you're not just dumping and dropping things on your staff and they're getting frustrated and quitting, but you're actually raising them up and deputizing them to make decisions on their own. That's huge if you can get to that.
You don't want to be a dumper. I think a lot of us are dumpers, right? You know?
Yeah. So yeah, so that's the challenge in the 4 weeks. So by the end of it, you should feel a lot more confident and have some control on how to delegate. We're not taught how to delegate. It's a skill, and it takes practice and repetition and consistency.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like everyone, you could I'm gonna put this in the link. Everyone, you could just sign up here. It costs you $1 to sign up to Karen's 30-day challenge, you know, and I'm gonna be transparent with you. Like, you know, like when you sign up, like, you know, like we want you to experience the Clinic Accelerator community. We work with like, you know, over 400 or 500 like clinic owners. We train their staff, and I want you to experience it through the $1 challenge with Karen. And all I ask is that when you sign up for it, you go all in, you know, like just don't sign. If you don't have time to commit to this, don't do it. But if you're going to commit to it, I want you to go in. And after you after you check out, what you're going to see is like, it'll cost you $1. And then at the end, it'll cost you $4.97, you know, because that's what our monthly subscription will look like. If you don't love it within the first 30 days, you can cancel, and all you have to do is $1. All right. So what happens after you check out, everyone, is that Fiona is going to set up a call with you once you pay the $1, and she's going to show you like what the next steps are with Karen's 30-day challenge, and then plus she'll show you how our community works, and you can decide to stay. You know, you get access to kind of everything you have, and then, you know, and what's the date? Is it February 1st, Tuesday of February? Is that when we start, Karen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And then Karen's going to be your coach, and then yeah, and so I think this is a great way for you to be able to experience kind of the community, and hopefully you're part of it. If not, like, you know, like there's so much gems from today's session. I hope you find it valuable, and I'm going to share some of the takeaways from our session today also in the chat, you know, and so hopefully we'll see you there. And